Hey y'all, what's up? It's your girl Kiana, aka The Whole Package, and today's video is going to be a story time, as you can tell by the title. And I'm going to be telling y'all a story about how I moved to New York when I was 19 years old and I was living in a shelter. I went up there with like $60, and it was I was broke, I was homeless, I was everything, but I stayed. So if y'all want to know more about that story, then keep on watching.
Can't deny I'm a star. You can tell by my walk. I ain't even gotta fuck him. He just love how I talk. I'm embracing the fake. I'm accepting the hate. If I wasn't number one, they wouldn't come from my place. Money good. Throw up where I'm from. Let them know I'm still hood.
Okay, so before I start, I want to say if y'all see me looking down, it's because I'm crocheting, because I'm working on some orders that I need to have finished tomorrow. So yeah, into this story. Growing up, like, I was like, I want to be a fashion designer, and this was like my whole childhood. I wanted to be a fashion designer. I used to like ask my family like, what type of wedding dress you want, because I used to watch TLC a lot, and I used to watch Say Yes to the Dress a lot, and I used to watch like all these bride shows, and I wanted to design wedding dresses. When I got old enough, I graduated high school, and my first thought was, okay, I want to go to the Air Force, but my dad was like, no. So I was like, you know what, I'm gonna go be a fashion designer. Like, in my mind, that's how it sounded. It sounded so easy in my mind. I was like, I'm gonna move to New York because I know that's like the East Coast capital for like fashion, so this is what I'm gonna do, and whatever. One day I woke up and I was like, listen, I'm moving to New York today, and I ain't have no money at all, but I packed my bag and I bought a ticket to New York. I had an aunt that lived up there, my dad's sister, and I have family up there, but like not nobody that I could go and stay with. So I didn't know what I was gonna do. I just knew I was going, and I was gonna find my way, and I didn't want nobody telling me nothing about it or whatever. So of course my parents was like not feeling it, and so I was at the bus station and I was like, I'm gonna go chase my dreams because this is what I want to do. This is what I need to do. Y'all, I'm at this bus station, right, and I'm there, and my brother had came there just to, like, my family was coming to tell me goodbye, even though like they was not feeling it. You know, I was 19 years old, and you can't really tell me what I can and can't do at that age because I'm out here by myself. So my dad came and he was like, how much money you got? And I think I had like no money. I think I had spent all my money. I don't think I had any money, or I had like $15, but he was like, that's not gonna get you anything. Like, that's not gonna get you nothing. And he gave me $60, and he bought me a ticket back to Virginia, and he was like, that money is gonna go fast because New York is expensive, and so you need to be back here in 2 days. And I was like, okay. And at the time I was going through it with my mom. Like, our relationship was really like crazy, and it was just a lot, and I just was like, okay. I said okay, but in my mind I knew I wasn't coming back. So I got to New York, and like, I love the atmosphere. Like, all my life I just dreamed of like fast life and the traffic, the lots of people, all that. Like, I love that. So I was like, I'm staying here. I don't care what they say. So my dumb ass, I'm walking through the Port Authority, and I see this guy, and he has a sign that says, need a ticket to Virginia for somebody's funeral. So me, in my mind, being new to New York or whatever, I'm like, oh, I got a ticket to Virginia and I'm not going back, so I might as well like give him my ticket because that's the nice thing to do, like an idiot. So I gave this homeless man my ticket, and I went and I called my dad, and I was like, hey dad, I love you, and I know you told me to come back, but I'm not coming back, and I have like dreams that I want to follow, and I have like dreams that I want to chase, so I'm gonna stay here, and I'm gonna apply for school. And yeah, it's like, where you gonna stay? And my aunt, she told me about a place in the city called the Covenant House, and I was like, okay. And it's a youth shelter, and I was like, okay. And so she was like, I'm gonna take you there. And again, I was like, okay, because I'm like, a shelter? Like, when you think shelter, you think like beds, like bunk beds, and like metal cots, and like, I don't know, you just think like dirty, like, I don't know, you think the worst when you think of shelter. So she took me to the shelter, right, y'all? And I'm like, they got a security thing in here, and they like you had to walk through security, and you had to go through like a metal detector. They checked your bags and stuff, and when you first got there to like get into the shelter, they made you wash your clothes and dry them, make sure you don't have no bed bugs, no nothing. Like, they was serious. And so the shelter was like separated by floors, and it was like boys on the 4th and the 5th floor. I think girls was on, I don't know, I don't remember, but the shelter was separated by floors. And so basically I remember I was on the 3rd floor and that's where all the girls were at, and I got like I did like my intake. That's what it was called, intake. I did my intake, which was a very long process. They wanted to know, like, was I a runaway? Was I like what I was, like, why I was there? And so I did my intake process, and I finally got like approved to stay there. I don't even know how it worked, but anyway, got approved to stay there, right, y'all? And I go upstairs, and I'm thinking I'm gonna see, you know, rows of beds and bunk beds and stuff like that, and I didn't. And I got up there on the elevator, and they walked me to my room, and it did have bunk beds, but it didn't, all the beds were not bunk beds. I remember like going in there, and it was like a bunch of girls. Like, oh my god, it was a bunch of girls from like every single walk of life that you can imagine. Girls that have run away from home, girls that have been put out of home, girls that's been abused, like girls that's like, it was crazy. Like, it was wild. And so I was definitely not expecting it, but it was nothing like I imagined. Like, going into the room, it was the beds, it was a bathroom, and every room had their own bathroom, and it was like between, I believe, 2 to 4 girls to a room, or 2 to 5 girls in a room. And so it was kind of crowded, because like, when I say them girls in New York be running away, they be running away. Like, they be wilding. So anyway, long story short, I stand in a shelter, and they would feed you breakfast, lunch, and dinner. You had to be up for breakfast at like 7 in the morning. Lunch was like at 12 regular times, 12:30, and then dinner was at 5. That killed me. Okay, dinner was at 5. Mike, I'm from the hood. We eat dinner at like 9 o'clock. Okay, so I would have to eat dinner at 5 o'clock at night, but they would give us a snack afterwards. It was so crazy. They would give us a snack. We had like a common area. It had a TV, and we had games, puzzles. We could have our phones, of course, because like, it was our life. And I met some really cool girls going into the shelter. I had my first girlfriend. Like, I was in my first lesbian relationship in that shelter. I met this girl. She was fresh off the boat from Jamaica. Her name was Sudani, and it's crazy. She was crazy, and I was crazy, and we used to fight, and we got kicked out of the shelter. But that's another story for another time. But yeah. So being there, I was there for a couple of days, and I went, and I'm like, okay, so where's the Art Institute? And I looked it up, and the shelter was on 41st Street, I believe. And so the school was on like 39th. Long story short, y'all, I ended up applying to go to the Art Institute of New York City, and I got accepted. It cost a lot. It's like, it cost a whole lot. I don't even remember, but it cost a whole lot of money. And I got a bunch of student loans, because I didn't know anything about like student loans. I didn't know anything about financial aid. I know I had to pay a little bit out of pocket. Basically, like, I was like, okay, cool. I'm gonna live my life like this. I'm gonna live in this shelter, and every single day I would go. Don't mind my baby hair, because like, it's weird right now. She had ponytails, and they gone, so yeah. But anyway, I was living in a shelter, and I was just like, I'm gonna do this. It was like one of the best experiences of my life, because it humbled me, because I was able to see these different girls from these different walks of life, stuff I had never experienced. And I just was like, these girls are so brave. But they thought I was so brave for moving up there with like $60 and just like a dream, basically. And yeah, it was crazy, but I loved it. Like, I loved it. I loved the people that I met. A bunch of super cool, like, down-to-earth people who just had their own like struggle. Mothers never loved them, like shit you see on TV, and you're like, what? Like, this be happening in real life? That's how I was. Like, what? This be happening in real life? And it just humbled me because I come from Virginia. I come from, like, not a small family. I come from a big family that, like, I mean, it's not all peaches and cream, but, like, you know who your family is and you know who love you, and you know, like, when I leave here, I got somewhere I can go. And so it was just like, these girls don't have nowhere they can go. They didn't have nowhere else that they could go to. Like, it was all they had. And it was just like, wow. But I was going to school. I was doing really good in school. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to school, but I have to pay for school, so I can't be broke. So I'm going to get a job. I was working on 5th Avenue because y'all know I wanted to be a fashion designer. So I'm like, I'm going to get a job in the fashion district. I'm going to get a job on 5th Avenue because, like, that's where everything is, like, as far as clothes go. Saks, I was working right across the street from Saks Fifth, and I was working at Uniqlo. It's a Japanese clothing store, but them clothes was like sweet as fuck, but I couldn't afford them. So anyway, I was working there and I was going to school. So working there by night and going to school by day. I went to school from 9 to 5, and I would work from 5 to like 12 at night, and then I would get home around 2 in the morning, and then I would have to be back to school at 9. And it was just like, oh my god, like, it was so crazy. And like, my schedule was crazy. So long story short, I ended up dropping out of school because it was too much for me mentally or whatever. But I think like my whole experience moving up there, being on my own, not knowing anybody, not knowing, like, I would go on the weekend and just go like into the city by myself. Well, I lived in the city, the shelter was in the city, but I would go into Times Square on my own because it was right around the corner from Times Square. So I would go into Times Square on my own and just like admire the lights and like everything. I loved everything about New York, and I'm like, I just love it. But when I became a mom, I was like, no, not a place I would raise my kids. I dropped out of school and moved back here. I moved back up there once or twice. I moved back up there twice. Once before I got pregnant with Mason, and once after I had Mason. But I love New York, and I think like for anybody who has a dream, and like no matter what it may be, or no matter how crazy it may sound to the people around you, like, go for it. Because I literally had $60 and a suitcase full of clothes. One suitcase full of clothes, okay? That's it. And I went to New York City, told my family I wasn't coming back, got accepted to the Art Institute of New York City, went to school, did my damn thing, and ended up dropping out. But that's not the moral. Moral of the story is follow your dreams, take that step, don't be scared, because like, what's the worst that can happen? Nothing. Whatever. So that was my little story time of how I moved to New York, and now I have to go put my little ducky to sleep. She don't even want to stand up, she's so tired. Saying these lights is bright, right? Right, ducky? Hello? Yeah, so that's that. So, bye y'all.